I loved hearing your stories yesterday about your memories here, and one of the questions I was thinking about last night was, what was it about the professors you remember? I mean, was it that they were just great teachers, that they had, you know, the knowledge of their discipline, or was it more? Was there something about relationship building?
I have some great relationships with, well, Lane Fabric is one of my professors that I've stayed in touch with for, 20 years. I call him my color guru, but I took design class with him, color comp. And he was more than a teacher. He was a confidant, he was a cheerleader, he was a fabulous instructor, undoubtedly, but
they were accessible.
They were accessible,
Yes.
and they were patient, and they were kind, and I think that's why I was able to excel, because I had that type of dedication on their part. It wasn't just the teaching of the material, but it was their personal commitment to individual. That was values, spoke values to me, and I wish I could thank them all in person, because I would think, look at that gal, she came from Bolivia, didn't really speak English that well, I lost my sight, yet, I have an award-winning career as a Spanish interpreter, author, and speaker, and it's like, what happened? And it's because I think at one time in my life, during my college years, someone invested in me, those teachers.
I'm department chair half-time and faculty member half-time. So this was completely gutted. I taught in a small private university before I came here, and that's where I learned the importance of the relationship, because it's hard to build a relationship in a college classroom where you see students, 3 50-minute periods a week. It's different from, the kindergarten classroom that I was in prior to that. And so I think Southeast for me has been that really nice blend of academics. I get support for my research, for my writing, publications, presentations, and, professional development, but I still have the opportunity to have the relationships. And some of the most satisfying things has been taking those students to lunch. I remember taking one student who had potential to be successful but lacked confidence. She was a non-traditional single mom, and emailed me midterm and said, I've hit the wall, I'm quitting, I can't go on. And I said, let's go to lunch and talk about it. And was able to encourage her to stay with it, and now she's a successful teacher in the area. We've created a new class in our curriculum that is technology in a universally defined learning environment, helping our students to learn how to use technology to meet the needs of every student, including all the accessibility features that technology can provide.
I might enroll in it. Yeah. Test it out.
I know when I came in, I'd been very active in high school, so I came in, and by the end of my freshman year, I was probably in 7 organizations and an officer of 4. Wow. And that was too much then when you hit your sophomore year, and my professor was very honest with me and said, look, you have to decide, do you want to do the science thing, or do you want to be a yearbook editor? And it's the comfort that you
Yes.
felt by having that kind of contact with the professors.
and a relationship.
Yeah.
Yes.
Told my dad, I said, I think I'm going to do science. I think I'm going to do chemistry as my degree. And he said, well, they have this new thing on campus, and it was the crime laboratory, had just been set up for the first few years. And so I went in and met the director, and they showed me what they were doing, and I thought, I think I would like that. So I got to be an assistant with the laboratory for 3 of the 4 years that I was here at Southeast, and then I've been employed in that field since, and I love it. I teach the collection and preservation of evidence class. Actually has criminal justice majors and forensic science students in it, because one of the things the lab here has always tried to do is to try and work with the police officers in the area to get them better educated on how to collect the evidence in the field, because if they don't do a good job collecting it in the field, then we can't do too much with it.
What impressed me when you were sharing how they actually do the work right there, and they're actually taking cases. I thought it was just, okay, this is how we're going to learn to do this, but you actually resolved the case that was in the newspapers in the community, didn't you?
Through the crime lab, yes.
Yes.
Which is affiliated. I mean, it's owned by the Highway Patrol, but we do work with the university.
Think about the times, the advising that I received here, and I compare that to how I speak to my students. I studied criminal justice while I was here, and in my senior year, it may have been my second senior year here, there was a some recruiters from St. Louis City walking in the University Center. They had brochures and they starting salary, $24,000. I'm like, hey, you know, I'm a senior. I'm planning on becoming a police officer. Forget about this last semester. And I left. And I applied for the police department and they hired me, luckily, you know, just left just like that. So I became a police officer in St. Louis City, worked narcotics for 5 years, worked undercover, experienced quite a bit, became a police officer in the Atlanta, Georgia area. Did that for a couple of years and came back to St. Louis and finished my career as a sergeant. Went back and got my degree, finished my last year. You know, I think I had like 6 or 7 hours to complete, but after being out of school, I had to end up doing like 33 credit hours. Finished the master's degree right after that. And one of my mentors is this guy named Rick Rosenfeld. He's one of the top criminologists in the United States, and I was attending UMSL, and so he talked to me about completing the PhD. I'm like, really? Me? No. Purnell? No. Here I am, Dr. Witherspoon. How did it happen? I don't know. You talk about roads, that's a bumpy road, but I made it. And I'm fortunate enough to be able to stand and talk to the students about the ups and downs in the profession of policing. Those are the things that I speak to, in the racial issues and the criminal justice systems. Students that I teach now that struggle and talk about dropping out of school and everything, I actually keep my transcript on my desk and I'll show them my undergraduate transcript. And they will actually see F's. Dr. Witherspoon, you made F's in college? I'm like, yes, I did make F's in college. And you can advance further than what you think. I certainly didn't think I'd be in the position that I'm in now. And I met some amazing people at SEMO. And all of these types of people prepared me because I wasn't the traditional person that was on the way to college other than what I guess was athletic skills. But I made it, and those are the types of students that I like to service, and it's amazing. And then what I really appreciate most about SEMO is that I didn't graduate from SEMO. As long as I was here, I still didn't graduate. But they have welcomed me in as, I guess, an honorary alumni because of the time that I spent here. But probably more importantly because I come back each year to give back. But it all started at SEMO.
I had an uncle, and I'm not a touchy-feely kind of guy, but he was more my mentor than anybody else in my life. He was in banking, and he had suggested when I was interviewing that I write a letter to the Federal Reserve Bank in St. Louis. He had been there, and he had some good friends in pretty good positions, and so I applied for a job. And the interesting thing is they said, okay, come up to St. Louis for this interview. Well, I was going to prepare for the interview. So I went to Kent Library and I read about banking regulation, and I had this good canned speech. I was going to go up there and tell them that I want to learn about banking. The Fed is a great place to do that. So I'd like to learn everything I can here for 4 or 5 years and then get into commercial banking. This is my canned speech. I get into the first interview, the guy who's running the bank examination department, this is where I was interviewing, said, we think this is a career position. We're looking for people who are going to be here and retire from here. Canned speech gone. Yes, sir, that's what I'm looking for. So that's how I got into the Fed. But I figured out after about 2 years, I don't want to second guess. I don't want to regulate people. And then I was asked to go into commercial real estate, and this was going to be a 2-year deal. I'm still in that. I found that I loved it.
And Jerry, your example, you said you've always been in education, but as an English education major.
You're a nerd.
Right.
Tell them what you're now.
Well, a lot of folks who have degrees in English go on to do something else. Yesterday, we were told that one of the 6 best majors or most prominent majors for law school is English. That was, one of them, although there's not really a pre-law major. In my case, I went on to earn a master's degree in English, but as a professor and as a college administrator having good speaking skills and writing skills, excellent communication skills are needed in every field. I had an undergraduate minor in public speaking here with a wonderful, I think I took 4 classes with Fred Goodwin, who was a consummate teacher. And I can still remember those classes very well. And the skills that I learned in those classes have really stayed with me over the years in all of my work. And then, as most of you know, I went on then to become a nurse after all those years. And those skills in communicating with patients and writing, I've done quite a lot of editing, and so all that background that I learned here at Southeast Missouri State University have really served me well in my career.
When I was a student at SEMO, my aspiration was to be a high school teacher. And out of 7 children in my family, I'm the youngest and the only one to have gone to college. I was invited to apply for the chancellorship of Allen College in Waterloo, Iowa, which is a small, private, hospital-owned college.
You don't really know where your life and your career is going to go when you start here, but the nurturance that you've received and the education you've received can serve you well as a springboard to a full life and a full career.
I joined the Navy Reserves when I was in my 30s as a banking lawyer. I came from a military background, and it was kind of fun. You know, you'd do your 2 weeks and they would send me to San Diego or Newport, Rhode Island or DC, and I thought this is really fun, and we'd do our 1 weekend a month with all the other attorneys of Denver. That, you know, it was kind of fun. And then of course the first Gulf War happened, and I was called up to go to San Diego and do wills and powers of attorney and things like that and help people deploy. And so they gave me a real easy job after that, which was at NORAD, where you were supposed to watch the Soviet Union attacking, you know, the United States, which obviously wasn't going to happen. So, but on 9/11, you know, we had not really done a lot of thinking about shooting down a civilian airliner, and that we would have had to have done, or we put missiles in the Capitol. And so NORAD said, well, who's our attorney that's supposed, you know, and I can just see him saying, we have this mortgage banking attorney in Denver. And I went to NORAD for 5 years and was working on rules of engagement for civilian airliners for domestic air defense, and DC with the missiles in the Capitol, and issues with the Olympics in Utah and British Columbia, and did a lot of work also with Canada. We had a binational planning group to address terrorism, particularly on the coasts and in the Great Lakes, and which was just like a right turn. I mean, this was totally different, but I was prepared, let's put it that way.
We all talk about the academics, but 4 years here, the social was so important. I mean, we come in,
Yes.
by and large, as 18-year-old kids and don't know a
Have
lot.
no clue.
And we come out as 22-year-old adults who know very little more, but that's, you know, no,
Some more.
you know,
We got a degree at least.
you know, you're exposed to things. You're given all of this freedom and this independence and responsibility. You know, I think that, of the college experience, that is as important as any class I ever went to.
It was so fun. I stretched it to more than 4 years.
Who probably wouldn't go back in the fall? I'd go back in a heartbeat.
During the 3 years or 2.5 years I was here, I had 3 different jobs. One at Southeast Missouri Hospital, one on campus, and one at a nearby restaurant.
Yeah, I drove the food truck around to each cafeteria. So yeah, I had that job for all the years that I was here.
I had a job in Memorial's cafeteria my senior year, whole senior year, I was running out of money. I was fortunate enough in those days to have a summer job that paid for school.
Well, a lot of the students that I have, they work. A lot of the Latino students that I have.
I think the
they
economics
really
has
work.
changed it, and I
Big
think you
time.
have to work. I mean, it's just prohibitively expensive. There's nothing wrong with it.
And we heard that with some of the professors yesterday, talking about the fact that some of the students had so many different jobs and different coursework where they could take the online class and go to class at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. It's a great option to have.
But the students who are successful, who graduate and work, have really learned how to balance multiple responsibilities,
Yes.
which is a valuable life skill following graduation.
I can't even imagine now being in college and having to be at work at 5:30 every morning. And there was many, many nights in a skirt. Many times when you'd only had a couple hours sleep.
With the Latino culture, when children go to school or to college, they're not supposed to work. They're supposed to dedicate the whole time 100% to studying, which was nice. So my parents would not let me work. You think I'd be pretty lucky, but I was so jealous of my friends. They had spending money.
God bless you for studying all that extra time, but I'll tell you, I didn't.
Well, as a non-traditional, my experience was entirely different. I drove 75 miles up here after getting my kids into school. Well, I had one son in college when I was going, so I'd get my other son breakfast, get him ready for school, drop him off, head to Cape. I worked part-time too and had all the responsibilities of a family at that time, so it was a little bit tougher, but I learned time management. I actually started in civil engineering when I first went back to school. Then I decided, okay, English, and I was an art minor. I then found a job after I got out of school teaching for a nonprofit, teaching environmental ed. After that, an art position came open, and I thought, maybe I'll work on my education degree. So went back to school, got my master's in education, and then I taught for several years. And during this time, I was painting, and it was sort of almost an epiphany, which is, coin phrase, but I did. I woke up in my 30s and I thought, I'm supposed to paint. This is what I was put here to do. And so then after my kids graduated, yay, and had jobs, I decided to take time off for myself, and that's when it's been several years I've been painting professionally and showing, and I feel like Southeast gave me the structure for research, dedication, pursuing what you want to do. I feel like I could do anything I wanted.
I loved watching the students making the costumes and knowing that that's a production I can go to in a few weeks and see those pants, and the fact that, because, I didn't realize how much of the work of those production is done by students. When you see a production that looks really professional, you assume that, they purchased that from a costume company.
And it's going to help them with their careers. They can build a career out of that if they want to do that part of theater, for example.
And the hands-on that we saw was amazing. I mean, those kids are going to graduate and they're going to just have their path paid because they are having such a wealth of training, practice in every area.
I think the thing that was most amazing is the expansion of the facilities. When we were here, it was a handful of really old buildings, and the new buildings was towers and language arts. And you look at all the buildings that they've added, the business school. I didn't get to go to the business school.
But Bill, truthfully, did you think they were old when we were going here?
Yes, they were really old when we were going here. This is an old building.
I know, but I thought that's what everybody else.
Well, there's some panache to an old university building, but it's spectacalar what has been done, and then the technology aspect of it. Your school, where you were showing we didn't have calculators. We didn't have slide rules. Per se.
Computer, we didn't have computers.
We didn't have computers. You had the decks
I
of
think we're old.
cards.
Don't say that.
We are old. And that's okay. You had calculators.
But you know, I think in addition to the technology and there's the improvements that are just all striking, to me, I think the education that I received, true, we didn't have any of that, but we had the dedication, the commitment from the staff, teachers, the deans, that even though, you know, I didn't like to take like English class, you know, English lit, like, oh, are you kidding me? And then, you know, who would think I'd become an author?
Remember how we would get picked up here? I was in the first group of women in Towers East. Wow. In Towers East.
We see a room.
Yeah, guys. I was on 8 and I was on 10, so one of those.
Okay, you want me to take you to that actual room?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what we want to do.
That was probably Bill's favorite sandwich.
You won't believe where I'm at. I am actually in one of my dorm rooms. When I went to school, this is the dorm room I lived in with my roommate.
Is this one right? So my roommate was a PA, so you got the view, if nothing else.
I don't see any big differences for the resident assistant. But
No. You just got a room. And it hasn't changed a bit. That is simply amazing. Okay. Air conditioning too? You got it good, guys. You got it good.
We were talking about this last night. It worked. It was effective. Why change that, right? But the changes that needed to be made were the changes according to the culture and the things that were changing out in the community. I think that's the beauty of this university, that it is very sensitive to the changes that are going on out there.
The university has come a long way. I mean, it has really done a nice job.
One thing I appreciate is, you know, a lot of universities speak about diversity and trying to build. When I first got here in 1982, there were approximately 500 African American students here, and it grew. And still today, there's a conscious effort by SEMO to continue to try to attract more minorities to the university, and I really appreciate that. You know.
I was glad we got to see the Veterans Office yesterday. That's something near and dear to me. They provide outstanding services, and they're working on a house. They're renovating a house for some vets to live in, and Jeremy told me yesterday we're probably about a year away. They're finishing up the demo and are now working on the house. And we have a scholarship fund there, and that's been really great to work with them and to give back.
All the university time here gave me a leg up in the field when I went out looking for a job, and I think it's helped me as I've continued now to work with the university and teach students here, because I do teach 2 classes with the science department, to maybe impart some of that, hopefully give back.
They have done a wonderful job with that foundation of raising money for the students. You know, we were lucky. A lot of us went through when this was really cheap. It's not. You know, and to
Affordable,
help,
not cheap.
it was cheap too. And to be able to help the students now when a disproportionate number end up with loans. So if you can defray that,
To pay it forward.
pay it forward. You know, we've been lucky. We've gotten some advantages. Let's try and help the next group. I do it for the business school, and I do it for international students and those from St. Louis. That's where I'm from.
I was fortunate and was a scholarship recipient for the Alton Bray scholarship, which was in the English department, and I got to meet him, and it was just a special thing.
One of the items on my bucket list was I wanted to have a scholarship in honor of my grandmother. She never graduated from high school. The census data showed that she was, at 13, she was a cook for a railroad crew. So she never had the opportunity to have an education. And yet she was one of the wisest women I knew. And I thought about the opportunities that I've had because of an education. And and my heart kind of hurt for her that she didn't have those opportunities, and I wanted people to know her. And I'm so proud that the scholarship was endowed. It's the Ruth E. Moore Endowed Scholarship, and the first recipient was awarded last spring. It's designed for students in their student teaching semester, because that's the semester when they're not able to work. And so many of our education students have part-time jobs throughout their whole career here at Southeast, but when they get to student teaching, you just can't really maintain being a student teacher and having a part-time job.
When you're going back, Julie, to what you shared about your grandmother, she made an impact on you, and look at the results. And I think that speaks of the power that we have to make impact on others, and in the way we act, and the way we react, and the way we give, and in the way we deal with situations. And a lot of it has to do with our upbringing. What was instilled in us in education and relationship and encouragement. And I think that's one value that sometimes you can't put money. There's no degree for that, but yet it impacts so many others. So.